Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess with So Many Creations. In this video tutorial, I am going to walk you step by step through my brand new Daisy handbag. Super excited about this one. I just did a quick little intro video on this not that long ago, but let's take a look at the bag itself before we jump into making it. So this is the tall version of the bag, and this is very uncommon for me. There's also a short version in the pattern. So there's the two kind of side by side. They're the same width, the same depth. The only difference is that the tall is a few inches taller than the short. Everything else is the same. All of the features can be used in both of those, and the pattern includes both sizes. I don't do that very often, but I just kind of had to. I actually started with the smaller one. This was the original Daisy, and then I wanted to use it, and it was a little bit too small for me. And I said, I love it. I love the size of it. I know a lot of you will love it, but I need it a little bit bigger. And for me, I gotta be selfish. I need my purse just a little bit bigger. So instead of reworking everything, I just made it a little taller, and I couldn't decide between the two, so I kept them both. So on the outside of the bag, there is a very large zippered pocket on the front. I suppose this is the back or the front, but I have to decide on something when it comes to the pattern, right? So we'll call this the front. It has a very large zip pocket. It's the whole size of the outside. On the back here is a nice large open pocket that you can use any type of snap you have on hand. In the video, we're going to use a regular magnetic snap, but you can use something set with a rivet setter. You can sub anything that you like. I would say as long as you have some type of closure. The pocket's a little on the large side. Without a snap or a closure of some kind, it might not make you super happy. The top is zippered. Okay, of course we have to have a zip on the top because we don't want all of our things falling out. I did not do a recess zipper, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably happy about. I do a lot of recess zippers. So this one is just a nice top zipper, but it doesn't take away from the size of the bag, which is what I love. Inside, there are credit card pockets, another zippered pocket, a nice large one back here. So lots of pockets. On the side here, we use some strap connectors. You have your option of doing tons of different types of hardware. This one right here, the strap is adjustable, but it is fixed in place. It doesn't remove, where this one comes off. It has swivel hooks. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about all of the different options you have. I'm going to show you some of the optional things that you can add to your bag, such as piping. You can add the corners. You can even skip the overlay if that's not your thing. I think all of the little extras really make it a special bag. It's all included in the pattern, but just like with any other bag, make it yourself, make it personal, and make it the way that you want it to be. So we're gonna walk through this entire pattern, starting with all of our supplies. I'm super excited to show this to you. If you like videos like this, don't forget to click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. All right, let's go make a daisy. Let's go ahead and jump right into our cutting. I've already done all of the prep work. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this pattern as far as your material choices as well as your hardware choices. So let's discuss those and go over all of the pieces. So on the back of your pattern, it's going to say that you will need an 18 by 27 and a 9 by 12 of cork for the outside of your bag. And what that means is that the majority of the bag, including the gusset, the handle, the main parts, those are going to be from the 18 by 27. The 9 by 12 is actually for this back pocket right here. And I did that separately for a couple of reasons. First of all, the next size would have been a full sheet of cork, which is an 18 by 54. It felt excessive to ask you to purchase such a large piece when really you needed half of it and a little bit more. The other reason, which is really great, is that if you wanted to make this out of a totally different color, if you wanted your pocket right here to be something completely different, you absolutely could do that. So I cut all of those main pieces from this print right here. So my front and back, my pocket, my gusset, and my handles, those are all going to be the same. And for me, that's usually how I do it. My accent, which most of it is optional, we'll also talk about that. That is what I usually do out of a different color. So I have my half finished sample right here. This one does not have a lining, but it has at least the outside done so we can reference it. But let's go ahead and look at the pieces that I've already cut. So I have my 2 A's. Those are going to be for the main front and back. One of these will be the zippered pocket part, which is what I call the front. I suppose it really doesn't matter. The other one is going to be the part right here where that pocket sits. So I got my 2 A's. I've also got a few B's. And the reason is, if you read in the pattern, it's going to give you your first B measurement for the gusset. That is going to be for the main part right here. But because of the cork sizes and because I didn't have you purchase an excessively large piece, we need to extend this for the tall version. So you will see that underneath this B measurement, there is a second B measurement. I called it the same letter because it's for the same part. And you don't need the smaller part, which is right here, if you're doing the short version. So we're going to be working on the tall version for the entire video. There is also going to be all of the tall information in the pattern, and in parentheses, you will see anything that needs to be adjusted for short. And all the short means is that it's a few inches shorter in height. Everything else is the same. Same width, same accents, same thickness on the gusset. The only thing I changed in the short version was literally the height. That is why it's short and this one's tall. So I have my B for the gusset, but I also have my 2 smaller B's. So these are all labeled as B. When we get to the gusset, I'll show you how you're going to use these. And these are basically just extenders. I have my C, which is going to be my back open pocket. That's going to have a snap on it. I have one of those. I also have D for my handle. Now, another note in the pattern, if you're making the tall version with the required amount of cork, you can cut your handles so you can make a double fold or a single fold, however you like to call it. The type of handle where you will literally just fold in half or fold to the center to make your 1-inch handle. If you are using extra cork, or if you're making the short version, you have the option to cut your handles 3 inches wide to do a trifold. I did use some extra cork because I was pulling from some pieces that we had, some miscuts. So I am going to do a trifold. You will not have enough if you don't purchase extra cork to do the tall version with a trifold. I just want to make sure that that's clear. I do want to show you how to make the trifold handle in the video. And when we get to handles, we'll discuss a little bit more about the 2 options that you have. So those are going to be my main pieces, the A through D. Now for the next part, most of this is going to be optional. So if anything here is really not your cup of tea, you can absolutely skip it. We have right here 4 E pieces. These are going to be for the corner accents. Now you might notice that right here, these corners are a different shape than what's here. And I have some templates available that you can purchase extra if you would like to. I'm also working on SVG files. I hope by the time this video is released, you will have these as an SVG. So if you have a cutting machine, you will have that. So these are just little corner accents that just add a little something extra to your bag. Totally not necessary for the structure, just something that I liked. So if you want to skip these, 100% you can. So we've got 4 E's, 2 for the front, 2 for the back. We have, I have to remember the letters. There we go. We have 2 F's. These are going to be the zipper overlays. Now I did one on the outside as I've done in other patterns. I'm also going to do one on the inside. I just thought it looked really nice. So these again are optional. If you wanted to only cut one to do on the outside and skip the lining, you could do that as well. I just wanted to try a little bit something different. I was enjoying making little additions to this bag that kind of increase the look of it and the elegance, I guess. So I was having a fun time. Again, we can skip this, but I'm going to show you that I use both of these, one out, one in. So those are your F's. We also have here G. G is going to be the snap tab. Now I would say G is going to be the only one that you probably don't want to skip. And if you don't want to use an extra color or you want to just match it to your cork, you should have enough of your 18 by 27 or a leftover bit of your 9 by 12 that you could cut it out of the same color. This little snap tab right here is going to be for extra durability if you're using a fashion snap like I did on this one, but it's also going to cover the prongs if you're doing a standard magnetic snap, and that's what we're going to do in today's video. This is going to help to cover it because the prongs would be on the outside right here, and we don't want that. And because this pocket is not lined, it's just a solid piece of cork that has some trimming on the edge, or some top stitching, I should say. That's why I used this piece right here. So that's going to be for your snap tab, one of those. And I would say this is the only thing that's not optional. Definitely cut at least that. And then we have here our final two pieces, which are H. Those are going to be for the side. Those are our strap connectors. We are going to talk about different types of hardware that you can use with these, as well as different ways that you can make your handle. But whichever way you do it, you're still going to need something to connect them. So I'm using the same connectors that I actually used in the violet bag. And again, you'll see that this and this are two different shapes, as is the violet pattern. I also have a acrylic template set for that, and hopefully an SVG by the time you watch this. We'll talk about templates in the next segment. For the lining, I did a mix of cotton without interfacing and waterproof canvas. I used a fat quarter of each and I had more than enough. So I cut my first two pieces here. These are going to be your eye pieces out of uninterfaced cotton. And all these pieces are the lining for the zippers. So when we open this up, we just need something back here. Otherwise, all of our things are going to kind of float inside the bag. So I'm just using the cotton. That's just my preference. I like something a little bit thinner that's not going to add bulk to my seams. You can sub with whatever you would like, depending on your machine and your preference. If you want to put a light interfacing on these, like an SF101, something lightweight and woven, you absolutely can. I choose not to interface them, and that's my personal preference. So I have two of the eyes, one for each of the zippered pockets. Now, out of my waterproof canvas fat quarter, I cut all the rest of my pieces. So I have right here one of my lining pieces. This is J. The reason we only have one complete lining is because inside of this bag, and I'm sorry, I don't have my completed bag right here, but inside of this, you're going to have credit card pockets on one side and a zippered pocket on the other. This is going to be for the zippered pocket. The credit card pockets, we actually are going to create them and then add sides, and then that will create the other lining piece. So for the credit card pockets, we have piece K. That's going to be a long strip. We also have our two L's. So those are going to go on either side when we get the credit card pocket completed, and that's going to make the second lining. That's why we've only cut one of those. I did note in the pattern that by making your credit card pockets from waterproof canvas, they are extremely tight. And I want to make sure that you understand that. If your seam allowance is too large, if you're not following an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, you could end up making these too tight for your cards. I find that the purse I'm carrying right now, I actually like that they're really tight, but I would much rather, if my purse fell on the floor, whether I was out to dinner or in my car, that my credit cards can't fall out. So it's a personal thing for me. Yes, it's tight, sometimes frustrating, but I like it better that way. If you want to increase your seam allowance just slightly, or decrease it, excuse me, make it a scant 1/4 inch, or if you want to use cotton for the credit card pockets, absolutely you can. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that. And last but not least, we have here piece M. M is going to be for the lining gusset. All right, so those are all of the pieces we have. I've done all the prep work. If you're using cotton for any of these pieces, anything woven, except for the zippered pocket linings, you'll definitely want to interface those. There is a note in the pattern that's going to kind of talk about that. I don't use a lot of interfacing these days because I do so much waterproof canvas and cork on the outside. So add interfacing where you see fit. I would say the only place that you don't want to go too heavy would be your pocket linings. You could do something lightweight. You can interface your gusset as well as your regular lining piece. If you're going to interface the credit card pockets because you're using cotton, Wait until they're folded and prepped and add interfacing to the back. That way you're not trying to fold an interface piece and make it super bulky. I'm gonna link up here my Charlotte video. That is a bag that I did that has credit card pockets on the outside and they are made from cotton. And in that video, after I prepped them, I added the interfacing. So if you're unsure of that, that video should definitely help you. Okay, so now that we've got all those, let's talk about templates and then let's get into some of our hardware options. So when it comes to templates with this bag, there's actually a lot of different options that you have as far as the acrylic templates are concerned, but everything that you need is included in the pattern. I am not one to tell you to use something that you don't have or that I don't give you in the pattern, but I wanted to show you some of the other options that you have. On pages 16 and 17, you're going to find all of the templates, and there is a 1-inch test square. Make sure that that is accurate, especially if you're going to be cutting using the paper template for your top. Now, if by any chance any of them are printing a little tiny bit off, you can make some adjustments and you can still work with them, but just be very cautious. What's going to happen is, for instance, your zipper overlay might be a little bit too small, and that means you're going to have to adjust your zipper, little things like that. So just check your test square. The one that is going to not be a full-size template is going to be template number 1. In your pattern, you're going to have a left and a right. And on the back here, you probably can't see it, but I have taped them together, and there's a little gray area right here. All I did was cut those out and tape them so that I'm covering the gray area. That little gray bit is the part that gets overlapped. So this width right here should be the same width as your pattern pieces. If this is not the same width as piece A, for instance, double check that you have not cut something incorrectly. If this is not for you and you don't want to use a partial template, I do have available two of the two daisy sizes on the website. Now, these are my old ones. They are not perfect. They were kind of my prototypes that I'm saving, but you will get a much better one. It still says crossbody, and it's actually now a handbag. So I do have a template for the small size, and I also have a full template for the tall size. I'm going to be using this one today for my trimming, but it is not necessary. It has your scoop top. It also has your curved corners, and it shows you your center line in case you're fussy cutting. It also has a rough seam allowance just to kind of give you an idea, mostly just for your fussy cutting. So I have both of those available. If you're using the paper template, when it comes time to trim, you're just going to be using this part right here, this curve, and you'll go ahead and you'll trim your corners with a different template. This is just to give you that curved top. The sides and the bottom are something that you're not cutting, just so you can see what both of those look like. So that's one option. Now in your pattern for all the rest of your pieces, you are going to have full-size templates. So when it comes time to cutting your corners, you have a full-size template for the large corner right here. Now on this bag, I use the diagonal, and on another bag, I use the heart. I think the heart is one of my favorites right now. There's also a small corner. So if you have this template set, you can actually stack these if you want to. You can kind of play around. And on the black and white sample that I made, let me grab that. On this one, I actually subbed out the small corner because I didn't want to take up too much room on these cool reverse applique pieces that I did. Now this one overlapped because I wanted it to, just a little bit, but if I had done the larger corner, it would have overlapped every one of them, and I didn't want that. So there's definitely some options. The corners, again, are totally optional. You don't have to use them at all if you don't want to. Now for the side connectors, you'll see that this one right here is kind of a diamond shape. I also have in the pattern this one right here, which is kind of a slightly tapered. It almost looks like a guitar. In the violet pattern, there is this one, and these are the two others that come in this template set. So if you have this template set or the SVG file, you could use any of those for your bag. I also have the zipper overlay. Now in the pattern, you're going to get this one, the rounded one. I also have the kind of half rounded, the square, and then this one, which has the little diagonal ends. Because I was using kind of a sharp line, I guess you would say on here, that's why I chose this one, and that's why I chose the pointed one, just to kind of make them all blend together. In the pattern, what I did for you is I gave you the fully rounded template. That is going to be a full-size paper template. the fully round, large curve, and then the slightly tapered but rounded connector right here. So you have all of those in the pattern. The only thing that I don't have an acrylic template for is the little snap tab, which is essentially a rectangle with two kind of softened corners. Easy to cut. So those are some of our template options. Now let's go ahead and talk about the hardware, because we're going to start with our handles. So when it comes to hardware, you have several options for this bag. Let's discuss the handle hardware first, and then we will discuss snaps. So when it comes to the handle on this bag, you can make it either a removable handle with swivel hooks or a non-removable handle. I think for today, I'm going to make it a non-removable, but we will still talk about adding swivel hooks. So let's take a look at this finished bag, and then we'll see some of the options we have. This handle right here comes off. It is removable. It has swivel hooks on either end. And this is an adjustable handle, which I'm pretty sure all of my handles at this point are adjustable, because between winter coats and different, if I'm shopping, if I'm walking, whatever I'm doing, I like to have the option to adjust my bag from my shoulder to a crossbody. So all of the handles that I do have a slide on them. That way I have the option to adjust them. This one is removable because I added the two swivel hooks. I think for today's bag, I'm not going to add swivel hooks. I'm just going to make it a non-removable handle. So those are pretty basic. Your slide, which we have right here, and your swivels, which I didn't grab any extras for today because, again, I'm not going to use those. So we've got that as our option. But one of the most important things to kind of keep in mind is what kind of connectors you want to use on the side, because you have several options. You can use D-rings. That is absolutely fine. That is what I did on this one right here. Now, I love how it looks, but I'm always cautious with a D-ring because they can flip. So if they're not secured properly up here, your D-rings can turn. These are kind of on the chunky side, and I did make sure to put my rivet real tight. D-rings are an option, as are rectangle rings, depending on what you want to do and how you want to add your hardware or your handle. You can also use triangle rings, or you can use double D-rings. So let's talk about a couple of the differences, because really it's only going to be a matter of, can you remove the handle or not? They're all going to install the same way. When it comes to the tabs right here, these are 1 inch wide tabs. So as long as your hardware is an inch right here, you are fine to add any of them. I have these little triangle rings. I purchased these from camsnaps.com. I use those on this bag. I think they look adorable. This, because it has the hole right here, this is only going to be for a handle that has a swivel hook. So I can't make a handle that won't come off with this style. Same goes for D-rings. Because of the arch of the D-ring, I need to make a handle that has a swivel hook. I can't put a regular, or just put my handle through here, because it's gonna get bunchy and it's not gonna look very nice. If I want to have an option, I can, or if I want to, excuse me, let me find my words. If I want a handle that is not removable, I can use either a rectangle ring for my tabs or a double D-ring. And a double D-ring is literally just a fancy version of a rectangle ring. But if I use either of those here, yes, I can use a swivel hook, but I can put my handle right through here and I can fix the handle to the bag. I can use those, or I can use these. And that's what I did in this bag right here, which I haven't decided on my handle yet. I can make it removable or not removable, totally my choice. On this one, it has to be removable. So use whatever hardware speaks to you. Make the handle however you want it to be. For today, I think that I am going to use the double D-rings because I did not order these in rose gold. If I had, I would be using those. But I have these in stock right now. And I also have the slide. This right here, these 3 pieces, are the Christie hardware set that I have on the website. I have that in 6 different colors. So if you want to use that set, you can grab that. If you want to make the fully removable handle, with the D-rings, you can also grab a Margie Violet set. It's the same set that I used in both of those patterns. On the front of this bag, we have a zippered pocket, and on the back, we have an open snap pocket. You can see on this smaller version right here, on the short version, I didn't add a pocket on the back. I just decided that I didn't want one on this bag. I just have my zippered pocket on the front, and you can absolutely do that too. Remember, this is your bag, and you can customize it however you want. Now on this short version, I used a standard magnetic snap, and on the tall version here, I used a fashion snap. These are from Cam Snap. These are the size 20 fashion snaps. These are my preference. I just really like these. I find that they add a little something. I kind of like that there's a little extra touch of color on there, and I just really like how they look. But the downfall is that you do have to have a rivet setter and the correct die in order to set those. That is not for everybody, I understand. But if you do have that, or if you even have from Cam Snap their magnetic rivet snap, it's a magnetic rivet snap. You could also sub that. It just depends on if you have the tool and the die set, and that's the style that you like. So for today, I won't be doing this one. I've done this one in several videos. I will link a video up here for you on how to install one of these snaps. But basically, when it comes time for this part of the pocket, the little snap tab right here, the cork accent, that's going to be sewn down first because we're going to punch a hole through all the layers. So we don't have to worry about hiding anything when it comes to these snaps. We have our front, we have our back right here, and back here we have the other part of the snap. And the back of that is going to be hidden inside of the bag. So that's going to be the difference if you're adding a fashion snap. For today, we're going to add a standard magnet like I did on here because those are a little bit more accessible to everybody. This is my little magnet right here. So I have my male half, which is the thinner half, right on here on the back, all right? And then behind this piece is the washer because we don't want to see the washer. And because this pocket isn't fully finished, we need to hide that somehow. So what I did on this is I finished the pocket, I added the snap, and then I added the tab on top of it. So there is my little snap all ready to go. The reason I added a snap on this pocket is because I was afraid without one that this pocket was going to be kind of hanging open and anything we put in here could fall out. So we definitely want some type of closure. Let's go ahead and chat about the rest of the things that we're going to need, including the zippers, a little bit of optional hardware, and maybe some piping. We've got some things to chat about here. I've also got my tools ready, so let's go over the rest of the supplies that I'm going to be using for today. So the first thing that we are going to need will be the zippers. We are going to use 2 zippers for the zippered pockets. Obviously, if you're skipping a zippered pocket, you can skip one of these. And we have our top zipper right here. This, just in case anybody wants to know, because I found that it was the most perfect color ever. This is the Midnight Purple with Rose Gold from moremeknow.com. I'll put her website down here. I absolutely loved this color when I saw it, and I bought it for no reason, but it matches the cork so well that I had to use it. As for the zipper pulls, these are actually the standard ring sliders, again in the number 5 in rose gold from Waywack, however you want to say it, .com. I just love their zipper pulls, and they have them for a really great price. And I thought the rings looked really nice with the circles on the cork. So that was my rationale for that. So I have my 2 shorter zippers and my longer zipper all ready to go. I'm going to set those aside. Of course, I grabbed a handmade tag, which is optional, or if you have your own tag that you want to add. When we get to kind of finishing up the front, we'll talk about a good place to put that. I also have a bag of rivets. I always use rivets in my bags for the handles. I also really liked it as like kind of a little accent on the corners, not necessary, but kind of cute. And the little tab that I put on my zipper, I used a little rivet on there. I use them on the handles as well as on the tabs. That is a personal thing, but also I think most of us bag makers at this point are using a lot of rivets. These are, I believe, from Cam Snap. These are 8mm with either 6 or 8mm posts. I can't remember. I apologize for that. But these are 8mm double cap because I have an 8mm die set. So those are my kind of little optional pieces of hardware that you're probably still going to use anyway. Another optional thing that we're going to talk about today is piping. And I know piping can be super scary and overwhelming, and I can say that because I was scared and overwhelmed by it. I filmed a short little video on just piping by itself. If it's prepared, I will link it up here for you. I have a lot of things I have to work on, but I'm also going to show you in this bag and also in this pattern, or in this tutorial, I should say, how to add piping. It's not as scary. Once you get into it and you use the right foot and you have some of the tips and tricks, it's really not frightening at all. So I have a yard of this beautiful purple piping. It is the same color as my accent. I just thought it would look really nice on this bag. As for the thread and the feet and needles, let's talk about those next. I'm going to be using this Tex 45. This is Grape Ape from Saya Swag. This was the best purple that I had to go. I usually use a Tex 35, but I'm going to go a little bit heavier today because I loved this purple. I'll use this in the top and bobbin. So I'm going to be using my heavy duty machine for this. So I've got my thread. I'm also going to be using a top stitch 116 needle. These are my favorite for top stitching, but also for piecing. So I use either a top stitch or a Microtex. I found that my heavy duty machines right now are loving the top stitch, so that's what I'm going to use. The feet that I'm using, I have my 1/4 inch compensating. I also have my 1/8 inch. It's just not right here. It's already on the machine. And because I'm doing piping and also my zipper overlays, I have my cording foot and I also have a piping foot. I also have, of course, double-sided tape. I'm using 1/8 inch. This is from 3M. I use a lot of the Warwick tape too. I have lots of clips as always. My scissors, a small ruler, my stiletto seam ripper combo. I've got some marking tools. I did grab my small rotary cutter, my 28 millimeter. That's going to be really awesome for trimming your accent pieces and also doing the small curves on the bottom of your pieces that we're going to do in the templates in the next step. I've got my lighter. I also have my stapler because, let's face it, I'm addicted to this thing ever since I started using it for the violet bag. I literally use it for everything. I've just become very addicted to my stapler. So this is the Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher. This is the one that I really like. So this is what I'm going to be using today, mostly for my top zipper and also for some of my gusset stapling. So I've been using that a lot. And because I'm going to add rivets, I do have my hole punch. That's my ProMaster. And I also have my Cam Snap handheld with the rivet die already in it. Okay, I think that's everything. I think we're already like 17 hours in just talking about all the materials. So let's go ahead, move all this out of the way. Let's jump right into step one. Step one is going to be fusing as well as trimming with our templates. Now, as far as the fusing is concerned, we talked about that earlier. I did not use any interfacing whatsoever. So when it comes to trimming our A's, which is going to be the outside main pieces, these right here, our C piece, which is the pocket, and our J, which is the single solid lining piece, we're going to use a combination of template 1 as well as template 2. Now, template 2 is going to be the paper version of this. It is going to be for your accent. So why are we using that for this? I'll show you right now. So I have my full template right here. That's what I'm going to use off camera. I'll go do some trimming at my cutting table. But basically what I am going to do with each of these pieces is I am going to trim my top edge right here. This is my A, so I have 2 of these. I have C, which is the back pocket, and I have J, which is the lining. And what I'm gonna do is just put my template right up here. I'm gonna trim my scoop on all of those from the top. And then at the bottom here, I need to round my corners. So I'm going to use template 2 to just round the corner right here. 2 bottoms are rounded, top is scooped. I did this piece, but I'm gonna do the rest of those. Now I have my C, which is obviously shorter than the A, and I have my template right here. So all I'm gonna do is trim the scoop up here, and then I'll just move this up and I'll do the bottom corners. Very simple. So I'm gonna use that. You will be using your paper templates if that is what you have. We are also going to use these templates again when we finish up our credit card pocket lining half. That is going to be in step 12, I believe. So we will use these two again. For the other pieces, I'm going to take my template 2 and I'm going to cut my ease. Now you'll notice in the beginning of the pattern, as under the cutting instructions, I did not give you sizes for any of these pieces. I just figured it would be easier if you took your template directly to your accent cork and cut it, rather than have you cut a rectangle, trim it down, another rectangle, trim it down. It was just what I felt was easier because there's so many templates in this pattern. So basically you're just going to lay out your templates on the back of your cork, trace around them, and go ahead and cut them. So I have my 4 E's that are done with template 2. We already saw those earlier. And I didn't grab all of the templates. I have my 2 overlays, which are F. Those are trimmed with template 3. So I've got those all ready to go. I have my G, which is my snap tab. I trimmed that with template 4. Just have one of those. And I have my 2 H's, which are trimmed with template 5. And again, I just took them right to the cork and trimmed them. Step 2 is going to be prepping the handle so we can get it ready for top stitching and hardware. In the pattern for the short version, you can cut your handle 3 inches by the width, or in the tall version, you'll cut 2 inches. It's just kind of the way that the cork worked out, where you can do a double fold for the larger one and a triple if you would like for the shorter. I did cut a little bit of extra cork. I had some extra laying around, surprising to no one. And so I did cut a triple handle. So let's talk about the 2 different ways we can fold it after we make it into one long handle. So we're going to take our 2 pieces here, and to make the adjustable handle, we need to sew them together to make one long strip. So the first thing you're going to do is place them right sides together, just like so. And this will apply whether you have a 2-inch wide or a 3-inch wide handle. It does not make a difference. And if you are a quilter, this will make sense to you. We're going to do it just like we would do binding. We put our pieces together at a 90-degree angle and we sew at a 45. Before I mark anything, I always like to check, make sure I'm going in the correct direction, and I am. It's so easy to get turned around. And so once I've placed those together, I'm just going to draw a line just like that from one corner to the next. I'm going to sew right on this line. I'll trim my seam allowance to roughly 1/4 inch. I honestly don't measure. I just trim it with my scissors. And then I'm going to press this over. I can either have my seam open and I can top stitch on either side if I want to, or I can just kind of finger press it open, or sometimes I'll use double-sided tape. So once I have this piece ready to go, before I top stitch, let's talk about how to prep it both ways. If you're doing a double fold handle with a 2-inch wide piece, as the pattern says, you can do either this, fold it in half, or you can mark the center and you can fold your edges in. Your handle needs to be 1 inch finished when it's done. So whichever way you prefer, you can go ahead and do that. For today, because I cut this 3 inches, I'm going to do a tri-fold handle. And I've done this in some other videos, so if you've seen this, you already know what you're doing. But if you haven't, let me give you a little demo on that. So all the way down the entire length of the handle, I'm just doing a little bit here, but all the way down the entire length, I'm going to draw a line 1 inch over from one of the edges. It is 1/3 of the width, or it is 1 inch, which is the finished width of the handle. Once I have that line, I'm going to add double-sided tape right here. I'm going to fold this edge right to that line, press that down with my tape, and then I'm going to fold this edge over just like so. Just a hair shy of the fold. I don't want it over. I just kind of want it like that. And once I have that prepped, then I can take it to my machine and I can top stitch on either side. It's going to have nice clean edges from the front and back. I would call this the back because it's where that's folded, but really it doesn't make a huge difference. When it's time to top stitch, you can top stitch however you would like. My preference is to do 1/8 on either side and 1/4 on either side. I like consistency, so whatever I do on the right, I do on the left. Our handle is all prepared and top stitched. I grabbed that as well as my hardware and my H tabs. We're gonna go ahead and move on to step 3 and add the hardware to these pieces. So for the handle, I'm gonna show you how you would do it as per the pattern as a removable handle, but I decided I'm going to make mine non-removable, which means I'm gonna do some of the prep work and then I'm gonna rivet it onto the bag at the very end. So the first thing we're gonna do for either of these options is take our slide, and I have my handle here. This is a tri-fold handle. So I do have my raw edge right here. I would call that the back. So I'm gonna hold this so it's back side down, front side up. And I'm also gonna hold my slide so it's right side up. And I'm just going to loop this up and over the center bar. Now this handle is a little on the thicker side and I am not using a wide mouth slider. That just means that this is not going to wiggle a lot when it comes time to adjust it, and I actually kind of like it that way. If it's too tight for you, you can absolutely get a wide mouth slider. So what I'm gonna do here is either at the machine, stitch across here a few times to secure it, about 1/8 of an inch from the end, or I'm gonna add a rivet. And I think I'm just gonna add a rivet for now. So even though I'm going to be making mine a non-removable, I'm still gonna start it exactly the same. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my hole punch right here. Get that kind of lined up, maybe about 1/2 inch from the end and kind of centered. Go ahead and punch my hole. And I'm going to grab a rivet. I've got my post and my cap. Go ahead and put my post right through all the layers. Maybe if I turn it over and I can see where the hole is, that would help. There we go. Okay, put that right through. And this rivet fits nice and snug, as you can see. And the reason I'm saying that is because when we get to another step, you're gonna see that the rivets are too big, and I'll show you a little trick where you can kind of work with them. Because if the post is too long, what can happen is you end up getting dimples, or you get a crooked rivet, and nobody wants that. So I've got that in place. I'm gonna grab my punch, make sure that is in there securely, and it was not. All right, give it a squeeze and I'm good to go. So what we're gonna do next, if we're adding our swivel hooks, fold this in half so there's no twists. You're gonna take your swivel hook. You'll see that mine are not even the right color because again, I'm not gonna keep these on here. So we're just going to add a swivel hook, and this one's gonna stay loose. We're not gonna do anything with it. We're gonna take the other end of this handle and go up and over where we riveted or stitched in place. And down here on this end, you're going to take your swivel hook, place it on here and bring that end down. And you're either going to stitch or rivet that. For me, I'm going to take these right off, just like so. And I'm actually just going to leave this as is, because at the end, I'm going to secure this onto my tabs and I'm not going to use the swivel. So for me, for right now, I'm done with this handle. I'm going to set it aside until the bag is complete. The H tabs are going to have a little bit of prep work right now, and then they're going to be stitched and or riveted to the gusset in a little while. So what we're gonna do first is put some tape on the back here. I put it on the long thin part, which will be the back of the connector. I'm just gonna go ahead and take the paper off. I'll do that on both of those. I used my wider tape just because, really no particular reason. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my hardware. I'm using the double D ring. You may have a rectangle ring or a regular D ring or even a triangle ring. And I'm gonna slide this until it's on this portion of the piece. That's gonna be the 1 inch wide part. So I'm just gonna put that here, bring that down, and I'm gonna fold my edge. And ideally, I wanna fold the edge, that end here, right here, but I'm actually gonna go a little bit further. I kinda like to go just a little bit more so that these are a little on the shorter side. So I fold until I'm right at the top of the 1 inch part. So I'm gonna fold it about right here rather than right here. And I'll just trim off the little bit of excess. So again, I'm gonna slide that on here. Bring this down about the same height. Give it a little squeeze. And now I can trim off that little bit of excess that I don't need. There we go. And those are prepared. So these are ready to be added on to the gusset. For right now, I'm just going to take a look I love that. I'm loving the purple with the rose gold. For step 4, we need to do some trimming of our gusset, but before we can do that, since we're doing the tall version, we will need to add these small B pieces to each end. If you are doing the short version, you will just have one long gusset piece that is the measurement in the pattern, and you will not be adding anything to it. You will be ready to do your trimming. Because I'm doing the tall version, I need to do a little bit of prep work first. So I have my 2 smaller B pieces right here, and I'm going to add one to each end, right sides together, just like so. And I'm just gonna clip that. It can be a little bit slippery and I don't want it to move on me. So once I have that in place, I'm gonna do the same thing down here. We are just extending the length of the gusset, which we need to do only for the tall. So I have that ready to go. That's how both ends are looking. I'm gonna sew 1/4 inch all the way across here on both of those, making sure I backstitch, and then I will push these up. My seam will go down towards the larger piece. So I'm gonna push the seam down this way, and I'm gonna top stitch 1/8 inch to secure that seam. Once that's done, I'll come back and we'll talk about how to trim it, because we're going to taper the ends just slightly so that the bag tapers a little bit at the top. To finish up step 4, we've got our pieces sewn together. So we have our long B and the short Bs on either end. I stitch them right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam, press the seam down towards the wider piece, the longer piece of B, and I went ahead and top stitch 1/8 inch. In order to finish this, we need to slightly taper the ends. We're gonna do the same thing to this as well as the lining piece M. And basically what you're going to do, I have one already prepared. On the back here, using the measurement in the pattern, you're going to measure over on each end just like so, and you're gonna measure down. And then you're going to connect those lines to make a little bit of a diagonal. And all that's going to do is bring this down to 3 inches, and the rest of it is going to be 4 inches. So we're just giving it a very slight taper right at the top edges of both. You can trim with your ruler and rotary cutter, or you can trim with your scissors, either way. And once I do one of these, at least the one end, I usually will take that, use it as the template for the other side, and then I will grab my M, and that is for my lining, and I'm going to taper that as well. Now we are not nearly ready for this, but we might as well do it now. That way it's prepared, since they're being prepared the same way. If you want to reinforce a little bit right here of your seam allowance and your top stitching, just so you don't lose it, that is totally fine. I'm gonna leave mine for now, because once I put the hardware on here, I'm not gonna touch it again until it's time to stitch, and so I feel like it's okay. Now that our gusset is tapered and our hardware is on the H tabs, we're gonna move on to step 5, and we're going to add these onto the end of the gusset. So what I did first is I went ahead and made some marks. I want to place these about 1 inch down. I want them pretty close to the top, and I want them centered. So I just measured with my small ruler 1 inch down, and I found my center. So I made kind of little T's right here. I'm going to take my tabs, and I added a little bit of tape just down the center, because I am going to stitch these. I will be adding a rivet as well, but I'm also going to do some stitching around the edge. I have not stitched anything on these yet, as you can see. So any of the stitching that I do is going to be decorative, but also to hold them in place. So if I can get this paper off, it is just giving me a hard time. Come on, so close. There we go, goodness. Okay, so we want our hardware towards the top. Our 1 inch measurement is from this raw edge of the gusset, and it's going to the top of the cork, the folded edge. We are not including the hardware. If we did that, our piece would be all the way down here, and we don't want that. We want it up further. So it's going to be a little close. It might seem like the hardware is actually too high, and it's actually going to be fine. It's okay if it kind of sticks out a little bit past the top or comes right to the top. We can move that out of the way when we're constructing the bag, but we want them up pretty high. So I'm just gonna kind of work sideways here. I'm gonna place that, and before I really secure it, I'm gonna take a look. Does that look centered? And I say yes. All right, push that one down. Do the same thing over here. So I'm just placing my 1 inch mark at the fold, and then it looks pretty good. All right, doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm happy with how it looks. So now at the machine, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to decrease my stitch length. Even though my top stitching is usually at a much longer length, going too long on these actually makes it difficult, especially on the curves. So I'm going to bump it down probably to about a 3. At the machine, I will decide, do I want to stitch across here or do I want to just do it as a U shape and add a rivet? There's really no wrong answer. I think on this one, so on this one, I went all the way around, including the top, and I did go across the top a couple times. On this one, I decided just to do it as a U shape and then to not stitch across the top. It really doesn't make much of a difference as long as you have something up here securing this piece. Even though I am not using something that typically will flip like a D-ring or a rectangle ring, I still want to secure that so I can stitch and rivet or just rivet. I could also just stitch. I know I'm going to add a rivet, so I'll kind of decide when I get to the machine, where do I want my stitching? I'll go ahead and get both of these secured in place and then add rivets, probably right in the middle here, nice and tight up against that edge. Once that's done, I'm going to set this aside and we are all finished with this piece for now. For step 6, we're going to add the optional corner accents. If you are skipping these, you can go ahead and skip this step. If you are skipping the back pocket, the open pocket on the back, you will be adding these to your A's. Since I am adding the pocket, I'm going to get rid of one of my A's. We don't want to put our corner accents on something where the pocket's going to cover it. So this is going to be the front where the zipper goes, and this is my pocket. And all we're going to do is just take our corner accents and just place them just like so. We'll do one on the pocket, one on the A. You can clip these in place, tape these in place, whatever you find is easier. I have some wider 3M tape. This is about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to use that instead of my thin 1/8 inch. And I'm just going to kind of put a piece in the middle here. The reason is it's not going to be where I'm stitching, so it'll kind of hold it, but it won't get in my way at all. I'm just going to get that paper off, which is always the most challenging part. There we go. And I'm just going to place this right on there. I'll repeat that with the rest of them. And when it's time to sew, I really only need to sew this part right here that's going to show on the bag. So that's going to be this. So you're going to add 1/8 inch stitching to that, or if you want, and I'm kind of deciding how I want to do it, you can do 1/8 and 1/4. You can also add some little accent rivets if you want. Whatever you choose to do, it's your bag. So I'm going to go ahead and get those prepped and ready to go. And once they are all set, another thing that you can do to help reduce bulk, especially if you are adding piping, which again is going to add more bulk, is in the corner here, you can kind of fold that back and trim out some of this. That way you don't have 2 layers going into the seam on top of possibly your piping as well as your gusset. So you can go ahead and trim that back, or if your machine is good and you're okay, you can leave that. So I'm going to tape these down, get them top stitched. I'll come back and we'll decide if we're going to add some rivets. I stitched my corner accents. I started with an 1/8 inch and I like the 1/8 inch, and then I decided I'm going to do a double stitch. It was just kind of how I was feeling. So I also went back and did the 1/4 of an inch. Now that I've done that, I want to add some rivets. So I've done that already to the pocket piece right here. I just love how this looks. I did it on the very first sample, and I remember Eric said, that is just so cute. And he immediately went to the rivets. So ever since then, it's kind of been my thing. I was playing around to see if I wanted to do more than one, and really, I think just the one rivet up in the corner makes a difference, and I think it looks really nice. So I'll give you a couple of tips on how to get them even. This is how I like to do mine. So I'm gonna grab a silver marking pen or a chalk pen, whichever you have, because I need to mark on the cork itself, and the cork is dark. So I fold it in half like this, and I just line up my edges so I can find the center. And now I want my rivet probably about 1/2 to 3/8 of an inch from this edge, because I don't want it to interfere or touch any of the stitching. So I just take my pen and right in the center here, just gonna kind of eyeball it, put a little dot right there. That is gonna be where my hole is. But instead of doing the other one, what I think is easier is to take my hole punch, and I'll go ahead and I gotta really clean this thing out. All right, get out of here. So go ahead and punch a hole. Now, I did trim, as I had mentioned, some of the excess away, but I do still have some right here. Now I'm going to fold this in half, line this edge up and this edge, and then I will just go ahead and mark so I know where to put the other hole. And then I know that at least from the view of that side of the bag, they look really even. Does it matter if they're the same as the back? No, but I did relatively the same thing. I just think it looks nicer if I'm looking at this and these two look even instead of kind of off. So I have my rivets here. Actually, I have a rivet. I have to get another one out. Got my post and my cap. And these rivets, I double checked, they are 8mm posts, which is fine for the handles. It's a little bit big for what we're doing. So I took some of that excess that I had trimmed and I folded it in half and punched some holes. And I'm gonna use those as little spacers on the back so that I don't have any crooked rivets or really more than anything, dimples. So I take my post and I always put my post through from the front. If you put your post on what you would call the front, then if you do have any little weird spots, any little divots of any kind, they tend to be on the back and you're not putting in a bad rivet. We can always take them out, but we don't want to waste them. So I folded over that little piece and put that there just to have a little extra cushion. And now my rivet's much more snug. Put this one in here. If I had just done the 2 layers, I just feel like it's wiggling around too much. And these are purely decoration. It's not the end of the world, but I don't want to accidentally have a rivet that doesn't look so great, especially when it's on the front of my bag. So I've got that. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my tool here and I'll set these just like that. And they're perfect. No dimples, no crooked posts, and they're not moving around. Step 7 and step 8 are essentially the same. They are going to be adding the zippered pockets to the outside as well as the lining. Now, typically in my patterns, I work through all of the outside steps before I start on the lining steps. But because I wasn't doing anything different, step 7 is going to walk you through in detail how to add this pocket. And step 8 is going to tell you to reference back to step 7. It is the same exact thing. The only thing that I would like to know, and I've made mention of this a few times during this tutorial so far, I am working with cork outside and I'm working with waterproof canvas inside. Because cork does not fray and waterproof canvas is very minimal on the fraying, I'm going to do the same exact pocket technique. And that technique does not involve a piece of fabric being sewn and then pulled through. We're actually going to prep and cut and place our zipper and then have a separate piece I, which just kind of gets basted to the back. That is how you can make a simplified pocket on something like this. If you're using cotton for either the outside or the lining, you're going to want to do a traditional zippered pocket. Otherwise, you can get some fraying. I will link a video up here for you that you can take a look at. Those instructions are not included in the pattern because as we've evolved as bag makers, a lot of us have started using similar materials, and therefore I didn't feel that I needed to explain something I've explained in many, many patterns for a long time and also put in videos. So I will go ahead and link that. So if your outside piece or your inside piece is made from cotton that is interfaced, a woven fabric, you're not going to want to do it this way. When we look at this one right here, on the back, this is a piece of cotton that is covering up the entire outside, and that's how the pocket is formed. When we look inside here, there is nothing sewn to the back. The zipper is sewn right onto the cork itself, and there is the fabric piece without interfacing. If we added this overlay and did this to cotton, I feel that it would work, but also because this piece would be cotton, it could fray under here, and we really don't want that to happen. If you want to do it this way on cotton, please just know that you're taking a risk. You might not be super happy at the end of that. In the Margie video, I believe I discussed doing a zipper overlay with a cotton base and a regular pull-through pocket. I will double check that video and I will link it up here for you just so you have a few tools that you can use. So with all that being said, let's jump in and put in this pocket. So the first thing that we're going to do is this is the front. This is A. that has the accent pieces. We don't want to do this on B because that is going to be where the pocket is going to be placed, the open pocket. So on our A piece right here, I've already made some marks because I followed the measurements in the pattern. There is a measurement from the top corner as far as how far down, and there's also reference for the lowest part of how far down. If we use the wrong measurement, our pocket is either going to be much too high or way too low. So make sure that you're checking your measurement from these corners as well as the lowest part. I've also found my center, and I have one of my F pieces, and on the back, I'm just gonna go ahead and grab my 1/8 inch double-sided tape. I'm gonna put some kind of roughly in the middle here on the long edge. I don't feel that I need it on the short edge. The long one seems to be just fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Take my paper off, and I'm gonna place this right in the center. Make sure it's nice and straight. So I have a little center mark. There it is. Okay, I can see it. You probably cannot. So there's my center mark, and there's the center of A and my placement. All right, just like so. Make sure that is nice and straight. Once I have that in place at the machine, I'm going to stitch all the way around the outside only. Then I'll come back and we'll discuss trimming the center and adding the zipper. So once you have your overlay stitched in place all the way around the outside, you're going to trim the center so you have a place to put your zipper. Now, it doesn't have to be neat or perfect. We just want to make sure that from the outside, it looks great. This is one of those times in bag making where it really only counts on the outside. And if the inside is, well, if it's a mess, that's okay. So I'm just going to get in here with my scissors, and I put my scissors underneath the overlay and just kind of start trimming. Sometimes I trim on the front and sometimes I trim on the back. It just depends on what I find is more comfortable. So I know that I have somewhere between the edge of the overlay and that stitching to trim away. I don't want to see any of this cork sticking through. So I do have my tape there, which sometimes kind of holds it down. So I'll just get a little grasp on it and just keep trimming. I really don't care if it's neat or tidy back here because it's not going to matter. So once I get this all done, I'll be ready to put my zipper in. This is also why I mentioned that this is not a great technique to use on cotton, because right now I would be cutting into a woven fabric that is going to want to fray. Will it look good in the beginning? Probably. Will it stay that way? I don't know. I guess with a lot of zipper use, it's probably not going to look good. So if you want to take that chance, you can. I just don't think that I would. I would do a traditional pull-through pocket. If my base was cotton, you can still use an overlay. That is not an issue. And you can still do all of the same things. We just want to make sure that we don't have any fraying. So why would we want to put all this work in just to have it not look good when it was all done? Okay, trimmed. Kind of ugly. Totally doesn't matter. How does it look on the front? Clean, crisp, and ready for a zipper. So on the back here, we're going to take a little bit more tape. So take my paper off, and now I'm going to place my zipper right side up and move that pull down a little bit. The pull itself is a little on the bigger side, so this can be a little tricky, but it is doable. And what we're going to do is work from the front. You always want to work from the front because that's the part you're going to see. So I'm going to start down here, kind of get that where I want it. Then I can lift that, and there we go. All right, so we've got that done. So now we're going to do a couple of things at the machine to finish this up. First, we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch on the inside now. That is going to hold the edge of the overlay down and also catch the zipper. Once that is done, we're finished with the zipper part, and we're going to grab our eye piece. An eye is that unfinished or uninterfaced cotton. On the back here, I'll trim up some of my excess. I don't need all that zipper hanging out in there. And I'm going to place I right side up as well as A. I'm going to put them right on top of each other, and I'm going to baste all the way around about 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll trim up any of that excess fabric. Step 7 is complete. I have my zippered pocket all finished. So let's take one final look at that. From the front, I have my overlay stitched in place. My zipper is here. When I open it up, I can see the front side of the pocket. That is the lining. Again, there's no lining on the back here. I stitched around the outside roughly 1/8 of an inch. It really doesn't matter as long as it's less than the seam allowance, which is 1/4, just to base that pocket piece in place. When I turn it over, this is the wrong side and this is uninterfaced cotton. After I stitched it, I went ahead and trimmed all the corners and anything that kind of shifted. You might be wondering why we didn't trim this the same as the other pieces in the beginning. The reason for me is because I am using uninterfaced cotton, which can be a little bit slippery and sometimes it shifts. You can see right here it shifted a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. It will still get caught in the seam allowance, but rather than trying to align something really perfectly that doesn't want to align, that's going to kind of shift a little bit, I just trim it afterwards. So I've got that all set. Now for step 8, we really don't have anything to go over because we've done all of the steps here. I have my finished lining piece. So here is step 8 complete. So it is the same as the outside, just using my J lining piece. My measurements are the same. My steps are the same. There is my other piece kind of stitched on. For step 9, we're going to be working with the C open pocket. We're going to be doing a little bit of prep work to the top so that we have a nice folded finished edge. And then we're going to add the snap tab and our hardware. So what I chose to do for this pocket was to not line it. So when you look at the finished pocket, back here, you are going to see the back side of the cork and any stitching that you have added. If you would prefer to add a lining piece, you can do that. I would probably just cut a piece of cotton the same size, place them right sides together, and you can sew this top edge 1/4 of an inch, turn it back, and then go ahead and top stitch. For me, I'm just going to prep this as is because I'm okay with it being unfinished. Not unfinished, but unlined, I should say, because the cork is totally okay to use as a single layer. So what I've done on the back here is I used my ruler and I kind of made some rough marks. I kind of just take my ruler and put it on the 1/4 inch mark, kind of scoot it around and draw my marks. And now what I'm going to do is add some tape along the top edge, and I'll probably also use some clips to secure. So I'm just going to take my 1/8 inch tape here. I use a lot of tape when it comes to bag making. I'm going to go ahead and add that right along this edge and just kind of press that in like so. We're going to be folding on this line, securing this down so we can get it to the machine and do our top stitching. All right, so go ahead just like so. I'm going to peel off my paper. And what I also like to do, and this is noted in the pattern, but just so it makes a little bit more sense, is I take my scissors and right here on that straight part, I trim almost to that line. So I'm like just shy of the 1/4 inch mark. I find that because the corners or the edges are straight and the rest of it has a curve, that sometimes these just don't want to stay down or fold along with the rest of it. So I'll just go ahead and do that. And then what you can also do, if you find that it helps, and I do, is I will take a few trims, a few little snips, just like so, maybe an inch, inch and a half apart. And that, I find, really helps to get this to stick down. So now I can just kind of do it in smaller chunks, and you'll see how that cork kind of overlaps there, and that's okay. And you might get little V's like that, little gaps. But that just helps to really press that down. And I'll just work my way all the way around. So once that is in place, I can add a few clips if I need it. I feel like this is sticking really nicely, so I probably don't, but better safe than sorry. So now that I have that ready, I'll take this to my machine and I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch. At the machine, I finished up my top stitching. So let's take a look at the pocket before we add any hardware. From the front, I have this nice folded edge right here that has some 1/8 inch top stitching. Did I need to do this? Not necessarily. I could have left this as a raw edge, just like my accents here. The cork is not going to fray, but whenever I have an unlined cork pocket, I like to finish the top edge. I just feel like it makes it look a little bit more professional. From the back, I have my top stitching and I have my pieces kind of pushed down. I use tape to do that. So now that I am finished with this, it's time to add the G tab. So since I am adding a regular magnetic snap, I'm gonna set this aside for just a minute, and we're going to look at the little demo piece that I have and talk about adding a fashion snap. So I did not get my rivet press all set up for this. I did grab the pieces, just wanted to go over that kind of quickly with you. This is just a little demo piece, so we'll pretend that this is the pocket itself. I did my top stitching, I folded my edge down just like I did before. And what I'm gonna do if I'm adding this type of snap or any kind of snap that's added that will have a hole punch through, a fashion snap, a rivet, magnetic snap, pretty much anything you're going to set with a tool, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this G tab on first. So I would find the center and I place that on here. And here's the thing about this tab, you have some room, so you can move it kind of wherever you want. I usually have about an inch or so of it on the front, and you have some excess back here that you can include or you can trim off. It really doesn't make much of a difference. So once I find the center, I'm gonna go ahead and place that. I used a little bit of tape on the front and the back. I top stitched over here and I top stitched around the edge. I did not do my best stitching. It's really, because it's not a finished bag. My stitching isn't so great, but that's okay. So once that's in place, looking from the back, I have this little excess right here. I could have trimmed it even with the edge right here if I wanted. It's totally up to me. But by leaving it like this, I will end up with 3 layers of cork that I'll be punching a hole through, which is going to stabilize my snap. So once I have that done, I'll take the cap and I'll add the cap through here. And I will add the snap onto the back. But wait a minute, what about the placement of the other pieces? Here is the brilliant thing that most of the time I forget to do. I'm gonna grab the other A. This is the piece that this finished pocket will sit on. And I would place my finished pocket on top. And once I have it there, I will take my pen and mark in that hole so I know exactly where to punch the hole on this piece. So that is my number 1 tip that I'm always great at giving, bad at following through on. So now I have my piece, I put my cap through, I've got my snap, I'll set that with my rivet press. I've got my nice hole marked, I'll punch my hole. I will use a little bit of a scrap piece of cork on the back. I just find that it gives me a little bit more stability, just like on this one right here. I just added a little bit, I had a tiny bit of orange. I just don't like putting a snap on a single layer. I feel like a double is much better. Once that's in place, my post will go through from the back. My other half of my snap will be on here. And then when I'm ready, I can just go ahead and snap my pocket together. So that is kind of a brief overview on how to do the fashion snap. And we're going to work on doing a magnetic snap. So this is going to be your standard magnetic snap that you probably have already, something that you have waiting for you that you don't need an extra tool to do. And I seem to be, there we go. I thought I was missing it. I have an extra washer for some reason. So what we're going to do on this first is we're going to take this piece, and I'm going to use the entire piece. I'm going to turn this over, and I've already found my center, and I made a little mark right here so I know where the center of this tab is. I'm going to take a little bit of tape just on the edge here, and we're going to sew the back of this, or actually we're going to, place the back of this, and then we're going to add our snap, and then we'll do our stitching. So I'll take my tape off. I'm going to go ahead and put this, line it right up, and I'm going to place it about 3/4 of an inch down. It's not going to be as long as the front, but it's going to cover up where the snap goes. That way this piece can actually sit on there, so it has a couple of layers to go through and it'll be nice and secure. So I have it centered, approximately 3/4 of an inch down is good. Once I have that where I want it, on the front here, I've already gone ahead and done my marks, but I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do. And take my pen and take my washer, and my washer is also going to go in the center, just like so. And I would say I'm probably about a 1/2 inch down or so Does not have to be any specific measurement. We just don't want it so high that it's getting into the way of the top stitching, or so low that it's just not going to quite work. So once we have that where we want it, we'll go ahead and mark this out of the way. I have the worst time picking up these washers. Once we have that there, we're going to take our seam ripper and we'll go ahead and cut through both layers, the G and the C. All right, just like so. Come on, there we go. I'm going to take the male part of the snap, which is the thinner part with the little nub in the center there. That is going to go on the back. So we're going to put that right here. And you'll see that is sitting really nicely right on top of that. And on the opposite side, I will grab that washer again and put that on here. I push prongs in, you can push prongs out. It's totally your call. I'm going to go ahead and just push that. Get that nice and tight. And now at the machine, I'm going to pull this piece down and I'm going to go ahead and stitch. I'm going to stitch at least around the edges. I might do the top stitching again, kind of decide as I get there. Once that's done, we can go ahead and add the other part of our snap. All right, so all my top stitching is done on here. I went around the entire piece. I did decide to go across the top. It was just kind of how I felt at the machine. From the back, there is my view right here. So yes, there is some top stitching down here that's not going to catch that, and that is totally fine. The magnet is very secure. So now in order to add this onto here, before we baste it in place, I'm just going to go ahead and add a couple clips because we want to make sure it's exactly lined up so that we know where to put the other half of the magnet. Now, you could have taken those little marks that you had made and done that, and kind of the same way that we did with the fashion snap where you made the hole and then marked it. For me, this is how I've always done snaps, and it just feels the easiest for me. I take the other half and I'm going to snap it together, and then I'm just going to push until I can see the little indents right where I want them. And there they are. And so now I know exactly where to cut. If that doesn't work for you, you can also just take your washer and you can I kind of work this way. So I'll place the washer where I need it, kind of line that up, and then go ahead and make my marks. One way or another, whatever you find is easier. And go ahead and just take that off. Going to grab my seam ripper and I'll cut just like I did before. And then I am going to grab a little scrap of cork, which I will cut off of my beautiful demo piece right here, just so it has a little something extra to go through. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut little openings on this one. And I will place this part through from the front, turn this over. I'm going to add my cork and I'll add my washer. I don't really think the order matters, but if you feel better putting the washer on first and then the cork, you can do that as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and fold those over and I am good to go. My pocket is ready. So the last thing I'm going to do is baste this in place, kind of like we did with the zippered pocket fabrics. And I'm just going to go 1/8 of an inch all the way around the edge just to keep that in place. Step 10 is 100% optional, but even if you are not going to add the piping, I think you might want to watch this segment anyway, just to see that it's actually not as scary as you might think that it is. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the tips and tricks of adding piping. Now, today we're going to be adding cork piping, and one of the main differences between a cork type of piping or a vinyl piping versus a cotton is that oftentimes inside of cotton, you actually have like a cotton rope or a tubing. So it's quite thin and flexible, something that if you sewed over, it wouldn't be the end of the world. When it comes to the cork piping that we're going to use, this is already pre-made piping. It does have a plastic tubing inside of it, and you definitely don't want to sew over this. So this right here is just a small piece that came off of my yardage. I started with 2 yards, a yard for each half, just to be on the safe side. And this is one of the pieces that I haven't done anything to. The reason I'm showing you this is because I want to talk first about seam allowance before we talk about putting it onto the bag. When it comes to the seam allowance for your piping, it's going to be measured from the stitching to the edge right here. And this seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch. And it is completely fine to use that as is. But for me, I like to do a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I trim my piping down. I trim the flange. So this right here is going to be the piping, the part with the tube. This is the flange, the double fold of cork. Because I do a 1/4 of an inch seam, I do like to trim this a little bit, which I did on this one. It's not perfect by any means, but the reasoning that I do that is because it's going to make my final steps easier for me. If you want to use it with the 3/8, just remember that your lining will also need to be sewn with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And the most important part, I feel, is up here at the top where everything's going to meet up. If the rest of this is not a perfect 1/4 of an inch, if it's a little short or a little fatter in certain areas, that to me is not the end of the world. What I don't want to happen is for this to be 3/8 of an inch and for the lining to be a different seam allowance and then to not fit together at all. So one of the other things to keep in mind with a piping like this is that you are going to be adding some thickness. We have our front right here, which is the thinner of the pieces. This is 1 layer of cork with just a little bit in the corners to make it 2 layers. Adding the piping is going to add 3 and 4 layers. There's our other 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we sew our gusset to this, we're up to 5 layers. Make sure that your machine is equipped for that. Otherwise, this is going to be kind of a wasted effort on your part. So you definitely don't want to do that and then have to take it all off. I have my piping right here. I also have my scissors. I have my tape, my clips, and my seam ripper. I'm also going to talk about the feet that we're going to use. There are 2 feet that I prefer. There is this, which is a cording foot. This is a Teflon foot that I use quite a bit. I use it on my zipper. I use it anytime I need to get really close to something. So this is a cording foot because it's meant to go against cording. Piping is essentially cording with a flange, so it's totally fine to use this. And a lot of times I will use this foot. The other type of foot that you might want to see if you have or invest in is called a piping foot. So very similar to a cording foot, you can see there's that edge right there where the needle would go. All right. And then underneath though, that's where it's different. This right here is kind of like a little trough. It's a little place for your piping to sit. So when we put that in there, it sits really snugly. And when it's time to sew, the needle is going to hit right on that stitching, right up against the tube. I always say, and I'll probably say it while we're doing this, you want to be uncomfortably close. The closer you are to your piping, the better it looks at the end, because then you don't have a gap. If you've done piping and you found that you have a gap, you're probably not using the proper seam allowance or the proper foot, or it could be a combination of both. So depending on what I want to use, I do love the piping foot. The only time that I have a little bit of a struggle is going around a corner because it wants to go straight and sometimes it doesn't want to go around that corner as smoothly. But I do also like to use my cording foot. So one of those is going to be crucial to you being able to sew this properly. Let's take a look at one of the finish bags that I have. So you can see here that the piping goes all the way around on the front as well as on the back, but it doesn't go all the way up to the top. And there's a reason for that. We don't want all this bulk all the way up in the top. We don't need it. It could have gone a little bit further up. That would have been fine, but I like to start down enough so that I'm not going to have any issues finishing my bag. Like we were talking just a minute ago about the seam allowance, right here, these are kind of the important ones. This right here is going to determine the width of the top of the bag. So this is where I want to be as accurate as I can with my 1/4 of an inch. That way my lining goes together nicely. Now, is the rest of this a perfect 1/4? It probably isn't, and that's okay. And when you look here, if you really pull this back, really look, you can kind of see that little bit of stitching right there from the piping itself. But for the most part, all you see is kind of the stiff plastic tubing part, the stiffer part of the piping sticking out. You really don't see the flange, and that's what we're going for. So what I've done here is on this piece of piping is I've again trimmed roughly to about a 1/4 of an inch, just kind of roughly here. It's not great, but it's okay. What I want to do first is find the center of my piping. That's gonna help me so that I can determine kind of how much I have to trim. I roughly measured this out, but it might still be a little bit longer than it needs to be. So I'm just gonna kind of make a mark right there in the center, and I'm gonna do the same thing down here. I'm just gonna fold these edges together and just make a little mark, because then I can line those centers up, and that'll be a really great place for me to get started. Just like we'll do with the gusset later, or like we do with a lot of things in bag making, finding the center is always helpful. So when I take a look at my piping here, and I'm just gonna kind of roughly lay it down, kind of work my way around the corner like so, I can see that my piping comes all the way up to the top edge and extends a little bit beyond. So I definitely have enough. I even have too much, and I will trim some of that away. So what I'm gonna do is on both ends, I'm going to remove some of the plastic piping, the tubing, excuse me. That's gonna help tremendously, because that's how we're gonna be able to finish our edges. So what I'm gonna do here is trim down. I'm gonna go down maybe about 2.5 inches, because I know that I'm a little overextended. So I'm just removing my stitching, just like that. All right, and once I get that stitching out, I'm gonna go ahead and just pull that plastic tubing and take a few inches. Get rid of that. And I can go ahead and re-stitch that seam. Most of the time I really don't, though. I don't find that it's making a huge difference. So if you want to re-stitch that, you can. But we want a flexible end here, because we need to be able to curve this off the edge so that we're not sewing on that plastic tubing and we're not getting it all the way up to the top here. I'm just gonna kind of lay this back down and just look and see if I want to take any more. I feel like that's pretty good. So I'm gonna do about the same amount on this side. So I'll cut down to about here. I'm just gonna get in there with my seam ripper, take out those stitches. So there is that. Get rid of some of my threads here. All right, now before we do anything, what I'm gonna do is take my tape, and I'm gonna place this all the way around the perimeter of the bag. So on the sides where I'm going to sew the piping. I don't care if it's extended beyond where it needs to go, but I just want something to help me grab a hold of this as I'm laying it down. And so I'm just gonna go around. It can be kind of bunchy on the corners, because remember, it's tape. Once we take the paper off, we can really press it down. And I'm doing 1/8 inch tape, because I want to make sure that I'm not getting any of it too close to the seam allowance. I want it on the very edge. You could also use glue for this, and I will also add some clips where I need them. I don't use my stapler for this, because I know that I'm going to staple parts of my gusset, and I just don't want to do staple on top of staple. That's just me. So I use tape and I use clips. So what I'm gonna do up here is right up at this edge, right above where the tubing stops, maybe about like 1/2 inch above the tubing. I'm gonna take a little snip out of here. I'm gonna make like a V, and I'm just gonna cut my V just like this, right to where the stitching line is. So there's how that looks. You just cut that little V. Get rid of that little bit of thread. All right. And I want to start about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch down. I don't want to go all the way to the top here. So what I'm going to do is place the V kind of about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch down. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And once I place that there, I'm going to get a clip ready. I'm going to take this and kind of fold it to bring the edges of that V together, just like this. So now it's hanging off the edge, but none of this has tubing, so I can sew over that. Now I'm just going to work my way around, pressing it down all the way until I get to the corner. And when I get to the corner, I'm going to snip almost up to the thread, probably about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch apart, just to help this spread on the corner. because if I don't do that, it's very hard to round the corner. So just like that. And now I'm gonna also grab a couple clips. I find that sometimes it'll pop off the corner because it's just tape. I'm just gonna press that down. And as I get here, I want this to be snug. So I wanna kind of work my way around the corner, keeping that tight. And you see how it kind of spreads as it goes around the corner? Let me get up close so you can really see that. That's how that edge is gonna look. And then I'm just gonna throw a couple clips in here, work my way across the bottom, and my center points are just about lined up. Those were just kind of helping me eyeball. I didn't care if I started in the center, which you can. You can start in the center and work your way out on either side. But what I wanted to make sure was that this center mark wasn't all the way over here, because now I've shorted myself. So it's definitely okay to start in the center and work your way out. I normally on most bag things would, but for some reason with piping, I just always start up at the top. Weird things that we do that we don't have explanations for. So do some of my snips and lay that out. Okay, put a clip. And don't worry if you over snipped. My snips go up to here, even though I don't need them up there. That's totally okay. And then when I get up to here, I want to try and make these as even as I can. So what I usually will do is kind of fold this in half, and I can see, put a clip there, kind of where I want it to end. And I would say that right about here is going to be where I cut my V. And then I can turn that edge and it looks pretty good. So I'll do that so you can see it a little bit better. Clip and a clip. And I'm just going to kind of fold that, not really fold it, but kind of angle it outwards. And then I'll put a clip right there. From here, it looks pretty good. I'll just take a look. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this is just one of those things that I like to check. They're not 100% lined up, but they're pretty close. So that means when I look at the front of my bag, I'm not gonna see my piping really off. It might be a little off, but that's okay. So once I have that where I want it, and I'm happy, I'll kind of hold it up, take a look, make sure it's looking the way that I want it to. At the machine, I'm gonna go ahead with either my piping foot or my cording foot, and I'm gonna baste this down because I don't want this to move. I don't want it to go anywhere while I'm getting ready to put my gusset on. All right, so I've got my back and my front all ready for stitching. So now that I have these ready, I'm gonna head over to the machine, go ahead and get them stitched on, and then we will be ready. It's getting late in the day. We will be ready to put our gusset on and finish up the outside of the bag. Now that we have all of our outside pieces complete, we have our front, our back. I did the optional piping. I did trim off any excess that was hanging off the edges once I have that basted in place. I've got my gusset here with the hardware. Now we're going to put these all together so we can start completing our bag. So I'm going to start with the front. It's just kind of the way I always like to do it. So I'll move the back aside. I have my clips here. I have my gusset. I have my stapler. And I'm going to start with the front by making a mark at the bottom in the center. So we always want to find our centers. It's just going to be the easiest to get everything lined up. And I did find that when I was working on the piping, but I'm just going to double check, make sure I've got it completely accurate because it is a little bit off. So there's our center. If my pen wants to work, please. All right, well, I can see it. It's not great, but I can see it. All right, now I'm gonna do the same thing on the gusset, and I'm gonna do it on either side because I will be aligning the front and the back. So it'll just be easier if I mark it now so I know where that is. And since this pen does not wanna work, I'm just gonna use my scissors and make a little tiny snip on either side. Get that all centered. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is start by aligning the centers Working our way up the sides, I will use the stapler where I need it, clips as well. You can also use double-sided tape, whatever works the best for you. So we're gonna take our gusset right side down, and I don't have a right or a wrong side, or a front or a back, I should say, to the gusset, so I'm just placing it like this. If I flipped it around, that would be fine as well. I'm going to staple the center just to keep it in place. So I'm just going to line up the center right here, and I'll just go ahead and staple or clip. That is just to keep it steady while I'm trying to work my way around. I'm gonna come up to the top. I always like to do the center and then the top. And I'm just going to place that right here. I do have a little bit of tape still sticking out at the top, so that helps a little bit. If you're using a staple or something like that that isn't going to come out while you're sewing, make sure that it is less than 1/4 of an inch. You wanna make sure that you're not going to be sewing over it and that you can remove it when you're all done. So now that we've got that lined up, I'm gonna work my way around with some clips, ignoring the corners for now. I like to do the corners last. So I'm just going to add some clips here. I would prefer to use my stapler, but I just wanted to show you that you can use clips. You don't have to have a stapler. All right. I'll probably use it on the back though, if I'm being real. So I'm just going to work my way around here, and I'm just kind of leaving that open. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side as well. Just working towards the corners. It's also good to kind of check everything, make sure it all feels like it's fitting nicely. Make sure that I'm not feeling like I have too much gusset on one side, one of the corners is tight and one's loose, etc. So once I have that done, I need to get this to fit nice and snugly in the corners. And what happens sometimes, because there's so much bulk, it doesn't quite want to sit. So what you can do is the same thing that we did on the piping, is we'll just make some small snips. Just make sure that these are not too deep, maybe 1/8 of an inch, because again, we don't want these to show once we do our seam allowance. And by doing that, when we go to place it, you see how it kind of just spreads out and it beautifully fits around? That's what we want. Now for this, because it's tight, I am going to use my stapler. Use clips if you prefer, it's totally fine. I just find that the more tools I collect, the better my bags are getting. I find that even though I have been doing this for a really long time, there's always room for improvement, whether that is with fine-tuning my techniques and my skills, or just finding a different tool that's going to help me get the job done better. There's absolutely nothing wrong with growth. That's actually a good thing. So there is that corner. If anything was not fitting here, I would just go back in and just probably start over. Try to get this lined up a little bit better if something isn't looking good. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy with that. So I've got that in place. Before I do anything else, I would not want to add the back right now. That would be too much. I'm going to do my 1/4 of an inch all the way around, making sure that I back stitch. Because I have piping, I cannot use my 1/4 of an inch foot. I have to use my cording or my piping foot, and I'm probably going to use my cording foot. I find that with all these layers and with the piping being underneath, that one works the best for me. As I'm going around to make sure that I'm not going to hit the tubing that's inside that piping or do anything kind of damage, I kind of push with my fingernail and I can feel exactly where the edge is, and that's where I'm going to push my foot. So as I'm working around, I'm kind of feeling to see exactly where the piping is. Like I mentioned before, I care about my 1/4 of an inch up here. I don't care if it's 100% spot on around the rest of the bag. I want it tight against the piping. So now that I have that ready, I'm going to go ahead, head over to the machine. When I'm done, I'm going to add the back in the exact same way and do the exact same stitching. Then I'll turn this right side out. I attached the front. When that was done, I went ahead and attached the back in the same way, found my centers, aligned the tops, and then clipped, stapled, or whatever I needed to do to get that in place. Now that I have that all together and both sides are sewn, I go ahead and turn it right side out. This part is always exciting. Get to check out my work, make sure everything looks good, and also just admire how pretty my new bag is. So let's go ahead and turn. All right. The piping does make turning just a little bit more challenging because it is stiffer. All right, but there is how it is looking so far. Now, I can take this to the iron if I want, but a lot of times what I'll do is right along the edges where the piping is, just kind of roll it between my fingers. I find that that really helps. Do the same thing over here. I'm just kind of rolling it, kind of flattening it out. Again, I can iron if I want to, but once the bag is done, it does kind of settle really nicely. Let's take a look at the bag itself. Let me grab my scissors because I see some threads that I missed. Go ahead and trim those. All right, so I am super happy. I was questioning if it was too much purple, which I did not think would be a problem, but just looking to see. And so far I'm loving it. I'm glad that I didn't do black as my accent, which was my initial thought. I'm glad that I did the purple. I think it just looks so neat. There is the front. I had thought about adding some rivets here on the end of the zipper, but then I decided not to. I thought maybe it would just be a little bit too much. It was just kind of a passing thought, but I figured with the little bit of rose gold, it's not too much, and it just looks really pretty. For step 12, we're going to make the other half of the lining that has credit card pockets on one side. I love the feature on this bag. It just makes it very convenient to be able to just kind of grab my card. I don't have to dig for my wallet. So you can see on this one right here, this one I did skip the other zippered pocket and I put the credit cards right here in the back. So you just have 4 little pockets right there. And we're going to prepare this very much so like we did on the Charlotte bag. So if you are familiar with that pattern, you've already done this technique. It is going to start with a very long strip of either your waterproof canvas or your cotton fabric. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to mention it one more time. Waterproof canvas makes your cards really tight. So when you put your credit cards in, it's going to be super snug. It also makes the seams when we sew our L pieces on a little on the thicker side because we are going through multiple layers of waterproof canvas. You have to decide what your machine can handle. And if you're not sure, use cotton or something lighter that you have sewn with before, and you can always add interfacing when you're done. So I've got my waterproof canvas. This is the right side. And on the wrong side, I've drawn all of my marks and my letters. Now, I got a little too overzealous and I just kept going, and I actually didn't need to. The letters go A through I, so ignore whatever's happening down here. That was me just getting in a rhythm and drawing a bunch of lines. So we have our measurements here. A is going to be a different measurement from the rest of these because it's the top. We need to make sure that we have enough room for trimming and also for our credit cards to not be hitting the zipper. Once we get into the B, C, D, everything, there's 2 measurements and they just flip-flop. So it's the smaller, larger, smaller, larger, all the way down through I. And once we get this done, we're going to do some accordion pleats. At the iron, it would be best for you to do this so that you can fold and press as you go. I have a piece of cardboard, just thin cardboard. You can also use cardstock or anything else that you could put an iron on so that you can get a nice crisp fold. Because I'm going to do this right here on camera, I'm going to skip the ironing. I will go get my iron afterwards and kind of press it when I'm done. Because I'm using waterproof canvas and this has a rubber backing, I would also be super careful not to touch my iron to this because it will melt and possibly ruin my iron, and nobody wants that. So once we have all of our lines drawn, my clips here are going to be my iron because I'm not ironing, but we're basically going to be folding right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side, just like we made paper fans when we were kids. So our first fold between A and B is actually going to be right sides together. So I find that that fold is kind of easy because I can see the line. So I'm just going to fold right sides together on the line between A and B. Just give that a little bit of a crease with my finger or even running the clip across it. And I'm just going to clip like that. Now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to go B to C, and that's going to be wrong sides together. So I am going to use my little piece of cardboard right here, and I will move those clips. As soon as I put them there, I knew they were going to be in my way. That's all right. Just like to make things extra challenging sometimes. Now, as I'm folding, I want to make sure that my edges stay straight. I don't want them getting crooked either. So I'm folding from B to C, wrong sides together. And I would be pressing this at the iron, but what I'll do is just kind of wiggle that out, and I'll just make a nice crease with my fingernail. And now we're gonna do another right side together. So C to D, right sides together, pressing or creasing. D to E, wrong sides together. I will use my cardboard for that one since I can't see the line when I'm folding. There's my line. And our pockets ideally should be about a 1/2 inch right here. You should have about a 1/2 inch difference so you can see each top of the pocket. All right. Now we are E to F. We'll fold right sides together. F to G, wrong sides. And if you've done this technique before and you've found an easier way to do it, an easier way to mark, by all means, please do that. Whatever is going to make it easier for you. This is just what I have found works the best, is just folding back and forth, and using the cardboard. All right, the last fold, H to I, because our other marks are not correct. And there we go. Just like that, we've got our pockets all folded. So I will take this to the iron and give it a little press. And then what I'm going to do, and I'm just kind of clipping this to keep it all together. What we're going to do next is top stitch each of the tops of these pockets. So we have 4. We're just going to fold the other fabric out of the way, top stitch 1/8 of an inch, fold it out of the way, top stitch 1/8 of an inch, do all of those. And then if you want, you can also stitch on the side just to secure everything. So I've got my credit cards all prepped. I have all 4 of them top stitch, and they are individual. So I have openings for all of my cards. And then I did tack down the edges about 1/8 of an inch just to keep everything where I need it. Now I haven't done any trimming yet, but I already know that it's longer than it needs to be. I purposely overcut this piece to make sure that if any errors happen, that you wouldn't lose anything or have to start all over again. So I have my L pieces right here. These are going to be sewn on either side. And as you can see, I have some excess down here. So I always trim my excess from the bottom. You can go ahead and do that now, or you can add these pieces and then trim that, because we're gonna have to do some trimming anyway. We're going to do our scoop just like we did on the other piece, and we're going to cut our corners. So whatever you find is easier. These pieces right here, the L's, they were also overcut very slightly for the width, just to make sure that once you put this all together, if your seam allowance is a little off, or if you want to adjust it and be a little bit less on your seam allowance to make more room for your credit cards, that you won't have to worry about anything. So once this is sewn together, we're gonna have to trim. So I'm gonna do all my trimming at once. So I've got my center here, I've got my 2 L's, and all I'm gonna do with these is place them right sides together, aligning the top edges. I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch, making sure that I backstitch. I'll do that with the other one as well. And then I'm going to push my seam towards the outside, away from the card pockets, and I'll top stitch 1/8 of an inch. So here's how the finished piece is looking. I did want to show you what I trimmed, just so you can see the edges here, the L's were overcut as I had mentioned, so I trimmed off a little bit there. I did my scoop top with my template 1. I trimmed the corners with template 2, and then I straightened up the edge with the little piece right here. I did make sure to find the center. You can see there's my little center mark before I started trimming anything, because I knew that it was overcut. So step 13 is going to be assembling the lining. It is going to be the exact same as your outside, except you are going to be leaving an opening down here. Make sure that you have a nice large opening you can fit your hand through to turn your entire bag. So I went ahead and I clipped. I did kind of clip around the corners here just to make them fit nicer. When it comes to the lining, if the lining is not 100% perfect, it really doesn't bother me. I noticed that there was a little pucker right here. I am really not affected by that, because I know that it's going to be sitting in the bottom of the bag, and the bag itself, the outside, looks fantastic, so I'm totally good. So now that we have these done, we're going to work on one more thing and then we will put our bag together. Step 14 is going to be the final step before we put all of our pieces together. This bag does not have a recessed zippered closure. It has a top zippered closure, but it's going to be added a little bit differently because of the gusset. And the way that we're going to add this zipper is going to start like a recessed zipper where we need to curve our ends, but we don't have the additional panels. Now, I went ahead and added my zipper pull on here, but I actually don't do that when it comes time to assemble. I actually take the zipper pull off until the bag is completely done and then I put it on. And when we get to that step, I think you'll understand why a little bit more. If that makes you kind of anxious, I get it, I really do, but stick with me and watch until the end of the video and I think maybe you'll understand a little bit better. And if you give it a try, I just think you're going to have more success than if you try to put on a finished zipper onto the bag. So I'm gonna explain that better in the next step. But first, what I need to do is on one of my ends, I need to curve my teeth away. That's going to be just like with a recessed zipper. So I'm going to just make a little fold here and bring that fold to the teeth, just like so, making as close to a 90-degree curve as I can. I'm gonna use my staple, or my stapler. I'm gonna use a staple. And instead of sewing it, I'm just going to do that to secure it in place. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So I'm bending it backwards towards the back, grabbing that crease and pulling it up towards the teeth. So just like so, making them as even as I can. This is the tricky one for me because I'm right-handed and it's just harder to hold. But once I get that where I want it, I'll go ahead and staple, and I'm gonna add an extra one. Whoops, I didn't get that one very well. All right, so now that I have that done, I am also gonna grab my lighter, hold on. And I'm just going to seal my edges just a little bit here, like so. All right, so there is my zipper all prepped and ready to go. When it's time for the bag to be done, we will add our pull and we will need a tab or a finishing end of some kind, but I'm not gonna worry about that right now because I'm going to pull this apart in two pieces to add it to the bag. So let me go gather some more supplies. I'm gonna come back for our final steps and I'll show you how to put the bag together. Step 15 is going to be assembling the bag, which is super exciting, but I will admit it might be a little bit nerve-wracking, especially if you're a little unsure of zippers. So I want to show you first why I do this without the pull on, because I think once you see it and understand that it can get a little convoluted, it's actually going to be easier in the end to understand and to manage if the pull is off. So let's say that this is our completed zipper and we have the zipper pull on. In fact, I'll even put it on just so that you can see it. So I'm gonna have my zipper pull on my zipper, just like that. All right, and there is my zipper. So it's all ready to go. In order to put this onto the bag, I need to put this half on this side and this half over here. And what ends up happening is that I can get my first side lined up beautifully, but when it comes time for the second side, I'm crisscrossing, I'm twisting, I'm trying to get everything aligned. And what ends up happening is that I end up getting my zipper twisted somehow into a way that I can't actually fix. So at the end, I take the pull off anyway because I have to fix it. So rather than it being hard to explain and hard to do, we're just gonna take it apart. We're gonna use two halves on each, so we'll have two sides, we have our front and our back, and we have two halves. It's so much easier, I promise. Okay, so first things first, you'll notice I have some tape on here. I went ahead and put that on, and I've already done some measurements. I measured from these seams, so I'm not including the gusset. I'm just measuring from these seams, a 1/2 inch in on each side. I did that on the back as well. So I'm just making those marks because that's where I want my zipper to start and stop. So I need to add half of my zipper onto the front, and I'm gonna grab this half right here. I want my curved side on the left, and I want my tail on the right. And so what I'm gonna do is take my tape off, and this is very similar to what we did in the Georgia backpack pattern, if you've watched that tutorial as well. The difference is that did not have a gusset, it had box corners, that's why it was different. So I wanna take my zipper tape right side down, and the edge of the tape away from the teeth is going to be at the top of the bag. So I'm going to place this curve right here at that 1/2 inch mark. And I'm just going to press it down. When it comes to adding a curved zipper, when you curve your zipper out, when you kind of curve it like this, your zipper tends to be absolutely fine with that. When you curve your zipper down, every so often you will get a little bit of a bubble in your zipper tape. So if that happens, don't stress about it. It's kind of normal. Sometimes it's more than others. So once I get down to this end, to that mark, I want this tail to come down. I want it out of the seam allowance. So what I'm going to do is, as I'm getting close to that 1/2 inch, I'm going to start to veer this tail down. And if I can, I'll find somewhere that I can maybe clip it, kind of get it out of the way. I've got this hardware here, so let's see if I can use that. I think that should work for me. Maybe. All right, kind of clip that out of the way, if it helps. If not, it's okay. So at that 1/2 inch mark, my tail is kind of coming down. I've got that in place. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing on the back. But I'm going to flip this over, take my paper off, and this time I need the curved part on the right and the tail on the left. So on the back part of the zipper, with the back, I'm going to use the other zipper. My curve is on my right over here, so that's going to align on that 1/2 inch mark. Line that up. Keep getting my fingernail stuck instead of the zipper. Stop it. All right. And now my tail, see my tail is over here. My tail's on the same side. It just goes on to the opposite side. And when I get to that 1/2 inch mark, again, I'm going to pull my tail down. And what I'm actually going to do is now I'll take that little clip off and I'll clip the two ends of the tail together. That way they stay out of my way. So there's how that's looking. At the machine, I can base this, or I can just leave it as is since I have the tape. Whatever is the most comfortable. If you feel like you would be more comfortable sewing this, you absolutely can. And now to finish this, I'm going to take my entire bag like I normally do and place it inside the lining. So here's the decision that I need to make. I have an open pocket and I have a zippered pocket. I have a zippered pocket and I have credit card pockets. Which ones do I want next to each other? I feel like my zippered pockets should be on opposite sides. So right now they're on the same side. I'm going to turn that and put my zippered pocket on the right, and on the outside it's on the left. So whatever I do, however I put it in here, that's how it's going to come out. I want my credit card pockets towards the front, the zippered pocket towards the back. So I'm going to pick my entire bag up, set it inside the lining. I'm being gentle with the zipper. I'm going to tuck down the hardware. I don't want that in my way. And right up here, I'm going to first align my seams. I'm going to grab my clips. And then I'm going to put one right here, grabbing a hold of that zipper so it doesn't go anywhere. Do the same thing over here. Align my seams. I push them in opposite directions. And I'm going to put a clip right on top of the zipper. I'm going to work my way around until I get down towards the tails. Really tuck that down there. All right. And when I get down here, my tails and my hardware need to get tucked down. So the zipper tail is going to go in there and the hardware is going to flip down. And the only thing I really want to be careful of is that right here where the zipper is curving down, that I don't pinch that and accidentally make a fold. I did that on the bag that I'm carrying. You probably wouldn't notice it, but of course I do. And it kind of annoys me a little bit because I sewed a crease, like a little pleat into the zipper. It was by accident and I didn't know until the bag was done, and I did leave it. I could have fixed it, but I didn't. So in hindsight, I'm just extra careful now that that doesn't happen. I'm pushing that down. I don't want to catch any part of the zipper that is not supposed to be caught. So I'm getting my seams lined up, put that one right there. Over here, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm tucking that tail down right at that 1/2 inch mark, making sure that I don't have a pleat. I'll put a clip there to hold it. Align my seams. And then just boop, like that. And everything is good to go. So I am ready to stitch all the way around 1/4 inch. When I'm done, I'll turn it right side out, close up the bottom, and then we will put our zipper pull on and we're just about finished. All right, it's all stitched. So now is the moment of truth. It's time to turn it right side out. Check and make sure that everything looks good. This is kind of the final chance to check that. I always hope that everything's good because I never want to turn these bags back after I've turned them because they are a workout. I'm just gonna work my way around here. All right, I can get rid of that clip now. And just try to be gentle. I try not to like reach in and pull. Just gently turn. All right, let's poke our corners out. Check the zipper, it's looking good. Looking good over here. Okay, no puckers, no pleats, super happy. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the lining edges under and get it clipped. I am not going to stitch it just yet. I'm going to talk about putting the zipper pull on. When I head to the machine to do my final top stitching, I'll go ahead and close this up. So for now, I'm just going to clip it so it's ready. I'm just tucking my edges under, just like that. And then just adding a clip. Sometimes I do, sometimes I just kind of hold it when I get there. I'm being professional since it's on video. A lot of times I just wing it. All right, so that is ready to go. So I'm gonna tuck it in. I'll close it up in a minute. This is the only problem with waterproof canvas. It's like it makes an air pack and you can't get it down there. There we go. Good golly. Okay. So I'm going to kind of work my edges because I am going to top stitch. So I just like to kind of roll them between my fingers. That way it's ready for top stitching. Add clips if you need to. That is completely fine to do. All right, there's all that. So that is ready for top stitching. We could top stitch first and then put the zipper pull on, but let's go ahead and do that now just so you can see it. And then I'll go ahead and do my top stitching. So now I have my 2 zipper ends, just like so, kind of facing each other. And I'm just going to align the pulls, or excuse me, the ends. So I'm kind of lining up my seam, lining up my zipper. That way I can see if I have to trim anything. All right, just like that. All right. Come all the way down to the end here. And my zipper ends are pretty lined up. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my pull. So I'm just going to turn it. It's a little bit easier for me to do it this way. It seems as though this side might have like one extra little tooth. So I might try to put that one in just a little bit further. I can also trim the ends. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and just get that in there. And we're just going to work it with our hands. If you need to turn the bag on its side so you can work this on the table, you can. If you want to use a zipper jig, you still can. And what I'm going to do is just zip this up. Let's see how that's lining up. And look at that. It looks perfect. All right, I'm happy with that. So now I'm just going to bring this back. I'm going to throw a clip on the end here. Since I'm heading to the machine, I thought I would do all my sewing at once. I'm going to close the lining. I'm going to do my final top stitching an 1/8 inch all the way around, and I will grab a little scrap of cork and add my tab on here, and we'll come back for a final look. I closed up the lining. I did not change my thread color, but it's all the way down in the bottom. So I closed that up. I did my final top stitching, 1/8 of an inch all the way around. When it comes to the side seams over here, go slowly. It can be a little bit on the thick side depending on the materials that you chose. So before I can use this or really take a final look, let's add the handle on. So because I did not do a removable handle, I am going to rivet mine on right now. So here's what I found was best from doing this in a few classes where we unfortunately didn't have time to finish. So what I do here is I hold my handle, I'm folding it in half so it's not twisted. I hold it with the wrong side up. And then what I'm gonna do is take the end here, I'm gonna tuck my zipper down. I also put a tab on my zipper, just made a little cork tab and put a rivet on it, and tuck that in the way, out of the way. I'm gonna put my handle through here, just like so. Pull that all the way through so I have the wrong side facing up. I'm gonna take this end, go up, whoops, come back, go up, and then over. Probably easier to lay it on its side anyway, just like this. So it's looped through. And then over on this side, I'm gonna come in just like so, and I'm gonna bring it around to here. I might do a little double fold, so I'll just fold it and then bring it right to here. Go ahead and get that all lined up the way I want it. Add a rivet or two. I'm thinking 2. So let me just go ahead and do that. A little bit awkward to try to do it laying down on camera. So I'm just going to hold that up. All right. All right, and now it's officially done. So there it is. I'm impressed with myself. I don't say that a lot. I don't get super excited like this much. I usually just say, "Oh, I did a nice job," but I'm thoroughly impressed, and I hope that you are with your bag as well. I had a great time making this. I can't wait to see yours. This pattern has been in the works for quite a while now. I have teased it a little bit here and there, and I'm hoping that everybody is super excited that it's finally here and the tutorial is here. Here is my tall version. Here is my short version. Look at those. Oh, I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to see all of the bags that you make. Don't forget to post them in our Facebook group. If you make the daisy pattern, you can post that in the pattern dedication group. If you use the cork from the website for anything, any pattern from anywhere, you can post it in the Cork Fanatics group. If you like videos like this, don't forget to click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching.